All right. So, hello everyone, and welcome to the webinar on robotic process automation, enabling digital process transformation. I'm your host, Shelly. I lead the marketing team for Nividous. Now, before we get started, I would like to run through a few housekeeping points very quickly. If you experience any technical difficulties, please share it via question window on the control panel. We will save some time at the end for question and answer. Please post your queries to the same question window and we will respond to them at the end of the webinar. And finally, after we end the session, you will receive the recording of this webinar via email. Now, I would like to introduce the speaker to you, Alan Hester. He is the president for Nividous and will present useful insights on RPA today. Hi, Alan. Welcome to the session.
Hi, Shaylee. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Great. All right, so before we begin with today's topic, let me give you a quick overview of Nividous and its background. Nividous is a company that's been in existence for about 6 years now, and we have very deep roots in product engineering and software development with an emphasis on digital process automation. Our two co-founders have come from Savian. They were original members in the team there and were involved in developing product and running the company. We are operating out of multiple offices in the US and India. We have a pretty large team of engineers that are working on a wide range of customer projects. And we have various other areas of expertise and have served a number of industries, as you can see on the screen. We have even won a couple of awards. All right, so that was a very quick overview of Nividous. Now I would like to invite Alan to introduce himself and move forward with the presentation. Alan.
Thanks, Shaylee. I am Alan Hester, and I will be talking to you today a little bit about robotic process automation. And I would guess that based on the topic itself, that many of you may be newcomers to robotic process automation. I will also refer to it as RPA. So if I say RPA, I'm talking about robotic process automation. So I apologize for any of you who are already experienced with RPA and maybe some of this information might seem redundant to you, but we'll try to set a good groundwork so that everyone can get a good level of understanding as we go forward. And this will be the first of a series of webinars that we will have on this topic. So let's start with talking a little bit about the challenges that you face in your business today. And I'm sure that this concept is not going to be new to any of you. You're familiar with the things that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis within your companies. And maybe yours might be a little bit different, but this screen shows you some of the big hitters in terms of things that companies are being challenged with, especially as you look at adopting digital transformation in your company, going from largely manual paper-based processes and tools to more digital-based processes and tools. So things like improving customer experience, productivity, and efficiency, of course, continuing to grow revenue and profitability. Many of you have to deal with regulatory and compliance issues, and we all want to make sure that we stay ahead of the competition that's out there. These things, in many cases, become difficult to solve because, as we already talked about, a lot of our legacy systems and processes are manual, paper-based. We may be dealing with things, tools and processes that were put in place many, many years ago, and they're still being used today. In some cases, we're dealing with things that are broken. Maybe there's not enough skills or expertise around to be able to fix it, or maybe no one has time to fix it because we're so busy generating revenue that that there's just no way to focus on that. In many cases, we're dealing with unstructured data even, and so we have to do all of these things with the limitation of doing it manually, which means that as we scale our business, we have to add people in order to scale the business itself, because all of these manual processes need additional people to do them as you scale up the number of items that are being done. So things like data entry, data validation and verification, any kind of manual operations, emails, and the things that we call swivel chair operations, which are very common, that you're working between multiple different systems for various reasons, and you're having to copy and paste things from one system to another, and just by manually copying and pasting, or maybe looking up values in one system and referring to them in another system. Those are the things that we call swivel chair operations. So what we're introducing here today is robotic process automation, or RPA, as a solution for that. Because what it does is it takes those manual processes and it allows them, instead of being done by a human, they can be done by a software robot. So these are not the kind of robots that you think about when you look at videos of cars being built on a production line, and the robots are putting pieces together and soldering and welding things. It's not that kind of robot. This is a robot that really just lives within your computer, and it's going to be operating on the same systems that the humans were operating on, and using the same exact interfaces. RPA is a very big topic now with many businesses. You could see some statements here from Gartner, Deloitte, McKinsey, talking about how big of a market there is for RPA and how many people are using it and how much it's growing. I think one of the things that each of you probably will deal with as you look to implement RPA within your companies, on the surface, there's often a fear associated with RPA, where people think, oh, wait a minute, you're talking about robots taking the jobs of humans. And initially, people can respond negatively to that, except when you start thinking about these tasks that we're having the robots do are those repetitive, mundane tasks that humans really don't want to do anyway. So what ends up happening is that as you implement RPA, you actually improve employee satisfaction and retention, because you're allowing your employees to focus on those high value tasks and more strategic tasks, and things like innovation and preparing your company for the digital transformation, as well as raising the bar against your competitors. So the fear of RPA in many cases, I think, is overrated. What companies who are actually implementing it are finding is that employees like it. Now, there's all kinds of different processes that can be automated using RPA because of the way it works. Like I said, any task that a human is currently doing can be automated using RPA, using that same interface that the employees are currently using. So what we tell people is that when they're thinking about what within your company is a good target for the potential to automate using RPA, think of those areas where you're using a lot of spreadsheets. In general, when you're using spreadsheets, you're copying data out of one system into another system, and it goes through spreadsheets in the middle. Or, there's some other common uses for spreadsheets, but that's one of the big ones. So things like that are usually ripe for automation using RPA. Another great way to find potential RPA candidates is to look for those business processes where you're using email. So if you have email as part of the business process that you're using, where you're waiting for an email to come into a particular mailbox and then you do something with it, or maybe you get an email from one system that has an order attached to it that you have to copy some data out of that and paste it into another system in order for the process to go forward. Those are the exact kinds of scenarios where RPA is well suited to be able to quickly and easily come in and make a big difference to your company. So one of the things that we kind of glossed over in the beginning is that the fact that RPA is getting so much attention right now is really due to the fact that it takes a very little amount of investment of resources, both in terms of the staff that you have to get involved and the overall licensing costs and hardware requirements, things like that, as compared to other systems that you might look to achieve the same kind of end goals. The investment into RPA is much, much easier to handle. And you also, in general, see a very quick ROI. So we talked through some of these already, but some of the other benefits of RPA are accuracy. You don't have the problem with human error because you have a computer bot that's doing the job. So as long as they were trained properly, they will do things the same way and the correct way every single time. They're also going to be very consistent. Every time they're faced with the same task, they're going to do it the same way and achieve the same results. Productivity, these software bots don't need breaks. You don't need to feed them. They don't need to go to the bathroom. They don't need to go outside and smoke. So far more productive, and can also run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year. The other advantage is that each bot can be trained to do numbers of different tasks easily, unlike employees where there's a pretty steep learning curve, sometimes switching from one task to another. The bots can easily handle that. So what I'm showing now is our methodology for deploying RPA within your organization. Now, there's nothing magical about this. Many different companies do it different ways, and there's probably no right way or wrong way. This is just the way that we visualize it. You start the process out with a discover phase, where you basically look at the activities that are currently being done within the organization, and you document it. You take an inventory of the processes that you have currently that you're working with. Once you have that in place, then you can define, by looking through those, what are those areas that could be areas that you could easily see a quick ROI through automation with RPA. And so, as I said before, one of the easy ways to do that is to look for things like emails or Excel spreadsheets, but there are lots of different mechanisms too that would lead you to determine what potential areas for automation might exist. But it's really anything that's not going to require human judgment calls or things like that. Those are the things where the rules are fairly fixed and well documented, are usually very easy to automate using RPA. So after you define uh, the steps that you're going to focus on, the next phase here is design. Designing both the business case and project plan, define the roles that are going to be involved. Usually, as compared to other IT projects, the amount of resources that you need to quickly deliver an automation using RPA is fairly small. The other benefit as compared to traditional IT projects is that you don't typically need a hardcore development team to work on this. You need people who are technically astute, but really anyone who can understand how a spreadsheet works should be able to understand how to automate something using RPA. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the tool itself. So then you go from design to development, developing a model of execution, and then finally, after the development is done, you have to deploy something in order for it to work. And like I said, we'll go into a little more detail on this in the next slide. But let me just take a quick break right here by giving you a question to answer. I want to get a sense for where you all stand in terms of what's being done with RPA in your companies. So I've put a poll up for you to answer: how many RPA automations have you done so far within your company? And you can see there the answers range from none to more than 5. So if you could just take a minute to reply to that. Okay, I'll wait another second. It won't let me show my screen until you guys are done. So I'm going to give it maybe 5 more seconds here because there's a few results still coming in. Okay, very good. So it looks like the vast majority of people have no automations currently, and that's fine. You're in the right place, because really, as I said in the beginning, we're trying to start from square one here, giving you the real fundamentals of what RPA is and how it might be able to help you, and then we'll build from there. So this slide shows you a little bit about how the Nividous RPA product works. There's 3 different components to it. There's the studio, which is really the development environment. As I said, it looks very much like a spreadsheet. So if you're familiar with Excel or Google Sheets, you would have no problem picking up doing development in Studio. Then there is a control center. The control center is really all about deploying and controlling the bots. And it's also for giving you a single interface for being able to monitor everything. Now, some of this is a little bit hard to visualize, and if you see a product demo, it will make more sense. But then the third component is the bots themselves. So the bots are out there running on independent machines, as we said, doing those tasks that used to be done manually by humans. Those are the 3 components to the RPA solution. So we're going to just quickly walk through a few case studies here so you can get a sense for the kinds of things that companies are doing with RPA right now and getting really good returns really quickly. So here's an interesting use for RPA that we haven't talked about yet. RPA can be very helpful in cases where you have old legacy systems where there's very little organizational knowledge or documentation, or perhaps the right skill sets are not available to integrate these systems with other systems. And so there's no way for anything to be automated. But RPA solves that problem because it allows you to do that integration using the user interface itself that humans are already using. So in this example, we're talking about a mortgage company that was in that exact spot that is using an old legacy system that has no APIs available, but they were able to automate a specific task, actually a few specific tasks, using RPA very quickly. Second one, this is one that you hear about these customer support bots and things like that many companies are using now, where you chat with someone and then maybe you don't realize it initially, but after the fact you might realize it wasn't even a real person that you were talking to. Well, we did something like that using RPA for a life insurance company that wanted to be able to use WhatsApp to reach its customers and get better customer engagement. And so you can see through the screenshots there that through WhatsApp, we were able to give them a number of different areas of functionality where they could find out more about their policies and also deliver specific details to their policy about their policy directly to them. And then the last one we're going to talk about, this is a manufacturing company that as part of their hiring process, they were using lots of different systems that were not connected to each other. And the reason why they weren't connected is they were all cloud-based solutions. And so there was no good way to connect them. So we connected them all using RPA. And this was something that was able to be done very quickly and reduce their SLA to within the guidelines that they had already established. Strangely, they had an SLA in place, but they weren't meeting it. But when we were able to automate this using RPA, it allowed them to meet the SLAs that they had already established. Okay, so at a real high level, I want to just tell you a little bit about an exciting offering that we have that we think is very suitable for people like you that maybe don't know a whole lot about RPA, but know enough to think, well, this is something that could be very useful in our business, and you may not know where to get started. So we have a program called the Quick Start, where basically everything that you need to get started is packaged up together in one fixed price package. And this is something that is available using a number of different licensing models, and there's some other details to it that we can certainly give you some more information on if it's something that you're interested in. But our main goal here is to help out people who look at RPA and they think, man, that sounds like a good idea, but I just don't know how to get started. I don't know what to do. And I know that I'm not going to internally be able to sell some big spend on a technology that we don't really know anything about. So that's what RPA Quick Start is all about, is enabling you to get that start and to do it with a minimal investment and do it quickly. This just gives you a high-level picture of how that works. We start out with a workshop where we go through those initial steps in the process of being able to identify and document the processes that you have, figure out what it is that is going to be the target of automation, and then design and develop that through the implementation phase and then roll it out. And this is all packaged up in the Quick Start program. So I know that I'm going through that very quickly, but I don't really want to take a whole lot of time pitching you on this specific offering. Our main intent here is to familiarize you with RPA and start you to thinking about how it might be useful within your organization. So given that, at this point, we're going to move on to some Q&A, and as Shaylee said at the beginning, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask those in the question pane of the interface, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. But for any of you who have questions that for some reason we're not able to get to, we can certainly follow up with you separately to get you the answers after the webinar is over. So feel free, even now, if you haven't entered in your questions already, to do so. But in the meantime, I'm going to start going through some of the questions that we've already received. Okay, let's see. So this first one, we kind of have already answered this, but the question is, what are the possible activities of RPA bots? So really, it can be anything that a human is doing on systems an RPA bot can do. Now, obviously, there are things that are manual tasks that a human could do that we cannot configure a bot to do. Like if there is a requirement, for some reason you have a legal requirement that someone has to do a physical ink signature on something, there's not going to be a way to automate things like that. Or something that requires a human to make a judgment call, then there's not going to be any opportunity to automate something like that. But in those cases, even if you can boil it down to a set of rules that can govern most cases, and then just have the exceptions escalated to a human to deal with that, I think what we find in most cases is that the exceptions can be very minimal, and you still achieve very good results through automating those pieces that don't require any exceptions. So there's a few questions about pricing, and we've kind of intentionally stayed away from pricing because I think our intention with the webinar is to not make this be like a sales pitch. So if you have questions about that, we will get back to you separately on pricing related questions. But what I can say is really what I've already said, which is it's very affordable, and that quickly you can see a very strong ROI, where in many cases you're seeing a complete return on your investment within the first couple of automations that you do. Here's a question about, do we have use cases related to banking institutions or retail banks? And we don't have anything from a retail bank, but we certainly have a number of different use cases that are within financial services more generally. So we talked about one mortgage application, we talked about one insurance application, but we have a few others within the financial services space. I think financial services in general is one of the areas that is really embracing RPA. So we can certainly get back to you with more specific use cases within that space separately. Let's see, the next question here, I'm trying to keep an eye on the time too, because I want to be sensitive to end on time, but we still have a few minutes left. Do you use integrations with other softwares with decision engine built in? So I'm not 100% sure what the intent of that question is, but if the question is, can you integrate it with a decision engine, then the answer to that is yes, you can do that. But in many cases, you wouldn't need to do that. I think it really just depends on the particular use case that you're talking about. One of the great advantages to RPA, because it's so lightweight and so quick and easy to implement, this is the reason why we started the Quick Start program. In general, it's just as easy to build something, some sort of POC or first project, as it is to explain how it could be done. So with a lot of customers, we start out by doing the Quick Start or some sort of POC to show them what can be accomplished. And that's the thing that opens the door to all the future opportunities that are existing within their organization that maybe they hadn't even thought of until they see something in production doing the work. So the average timeline for one process, that's one of the questions I got here. I'd say the majority of the projects that we have done start with back office applications. So things related to finance and HR, things that are fairly common across all companies. And in general, they're hard to automate because there's a lot of other systems that come into play, like the manufacturing example that we talked about that was using 4 different systems for a hiring process, and none of them could be integrated together. So I would say it's easy to give a timeline of 4 to 6 weeks maximum to get something in production as your first process. I think in many cases it can be faster than that, but to use that as an average, I think is fairly safe. So I see we're at 1:31 now, and we have many more questions. I apologize we were not able to get to more of those, but as I said, we will follow up with you separately to get the answers to all of your questions, and keep watching because we will have some additional sessions on RPA where we will go into more detail about both how you can use RPA and different use cases, different case studies, as well as some more detail about the tool itself. If you are interested in getting a demo of the product, or perhaps even having some sort of POC done, feel free to reach out to us, and we would be happy to set that up for you. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Shaylee, and she can close it out for us.
All right. Thank you, Alan, for a very informative session on robotic process automation. I thank all of you who have joined in. Hope you have enjoyed the webinar. That's it. Thanks, Alan, again for your valuable time. Have a good day, all of you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.